Okay, this book is called Fritzie Goes Home. And this book was published in 1974, so expect to see some 1970s references in it. Okay, Fritzie lived in a cozy red house with his family. Fritzie loved the house. He loved the kitchen, where he ate his breakfast and supper and treats. He loved the living room, where the sun shone in great warm patches. He loved the yard, where he played all day. He loved the hall, where he slept every night on a fat fur rug. He was very happy. He even loved the loud wallpaper. But one day everything changed. The kitchen was full of big brown boxes. The living room furniture was all huddled around the sofa, and all the kids were wearing sort of bell bottoms, and there was no evidence of cell phone technology whatsoever. Grrr, Fritzie grumbled and went outside. "Mark, Jennifer," called Mother, "the moving van is on its way now. You and Father take Fritz ahead to the new house." Mark picked up Fritzie and took him to the car. Father started the mother. "Goodbye, house," Father said, a little sadly as the car moved away. "Goodbye, house," said Mark and Jennifer and Mark. "Goodbye, we'll miss you." Fritzie whined and wondered why they must leave their nice, familiar home. Father drove past the river. He drove through the city. He drove on a long, busy freeway. All the way, Fritzie sat with his chin on Mark's lap, longing for the little red house and the big backyard. At last, they reached the new house. It stood tall and yellow at the end of the walk. "Come on, Fritz!" Mark and Jennifer raced ahead. Inside, the house was big and cold and did not have loud wallpaper. Mark and Fritz ran up and down the long, high stairway. Fritz ran after them, but the stairs were too steep and hard for him to climb. He sat on the landing halfway up, and there he stayed, smelling the strange, damp, empty smell. Yeah, dogs' smells are important. In the afternoon, the moving van came. In and out the moving men went, bringing furniture with loud upholstery and boxes. When they had brought in everything they had lived in the little red house, Mother said, "At last, now it feels like home with all our things here." Okay. But not to Fritz. He did not like the tall yellow house with the big strange rooms and the stairs that were too hard to climb. When the movers left, he slipped out the door after them and started off down the street. He wanted to be in the little red house, curled up on his fur rug, or out chasing squirrels in the backyard. He hated the new house. He wanted to go home. The more Fritz thought about the little red house, the more he hurried. He didn't stop to visit with the people in the city. He didn't see the sky growing dark. He didn't even notice that his paws were getting sore from the rough cement walks. He only knew that each step was taking him closer to home. Hope he doesn't get lost. He raced around the corner, down the block, and up the walk, and there he stopped. The red house was dark. At least he got to the red house. Yeah, this is a kid's book. The front door was tightly shut, and suddenly Fritz felt the shivery chill in the night air. He ran around to the backyard. He pushed his paw high on the back door and pushed hard. The door flew open. Dad forgot to lock it. Realtors will have a talk with him. The door flew open and Fritz went in. The kitchen cupboards gaped open. The dining room was dark. The fireplace was black and cold. The floors were bare and had a lonely, dusty smell. Smells are important to dogs. Fritz walked all through the house. It was silent and empty, except for the very loud wallpaper, but that's another story. There were no clothes in the closet or shoes to play with, and he wasn't really supposed to play with the shoes, but we won't fuss at him at this point. There were no curtains at the windows to keep out the night. "Woof, woof," called Fritzie frantically, and the sound echoed through the empty rooms. Nobody's here, nobody's here, nobody's here. Except me, but we're not concerned about that. Suddenly, more than he had ever wanted the little red house, Fritzie wanted his family. He wanted Mark and Jennifer and mother and father. Woof, woof, he called again. Then Fritzie ran out the door, and in the middle of the night, he started once more on the long walk. Hope he remembers his way. The wind slept along the city streets, and he huddled close to the buildings to keep warm. When he reached the highway, there was no longer any shelter. The wind blew back his ears and whipped his tail, but the moon shone bright and seemed to say, "Keep going, little dog." He's not so little. It's not much farther. Keep going, little dog. He's kind of a huge dog, actually. You're almost there. With the first glow of morning, Fritzie turned off the highway and into the shady street. At the end of the street stood the tall yellow house. Fritzie began to run. He ran across the street and bounded off up the walk. Ruff! He barked at the door of the tall yellow house. Ruff! Ruff! Oops. Fritzie! Exclaimed Jennifer. Fritz! Shouted Mark. Fritz! Said Father as he flung the door open. Oh, Fritz! Cried Mother, scooping up in her arms. Oh, Fritz, you're back. We looked everywhere for you. Then she carried him into the kitchen and gently set him down beside his blue dish full of food and his silver pan shimmering with cool water. Fritzie sniffed and licked Mark and Jennifer and Mother and Father in turn. He wagged his tail so hard that he wiggled clear up to his head. He ran all the way up the long steep stairs and all the way down again. He found the closets and his shoes and his own fur rug. Then he went back to the kitchen. He sighed with satisfaction and began to eat. Fritzie knew that this was home.